All right, so we're getting to this message a little bit later than I originally thought I would. I've been thinking about doing this video for a few days. Time flies by for me, it doesn't exist. I was in the shower, it came through strongly more, and I was like, oh, I need to post this video about the holidays, interactions with family, friends. It's a question I get a lot, and try to get it out there to help people. So it is already the turkey purge of 2023, as I call it in America, Thanksgiving Day, where families are getting together and a lot of people end up in antagonistic situations with their families and friends because of the stages of awakening. And one of the things I want to remind people of is that you cannot force change in a person. You cannot force change in anybody. The more you force change, the more you argue with somebody and fight with them, the more they will dig in and the less they will hear you and listen to you and let you speak. Your best course of action when you are waking up and discovering that, extraterrestrials are real, that you're in a psychologically programmed reality, that there are control systems that, you know, arguing about politics, whatever it is, whatever you dig in about, you will not change their mind if you fight them. Most family units and friends at low consciousness are designed to fight each other, to battle, to get into those disagreements and dig in. I learned those lessons very early on, and people used to ask all the time, why is he so quiet? And one of my things was always, well, I don't have anything to say because I know nobody's gonna hear me. Like, why am I gonna waste my words and my energy if none of you are gonna hear or listen to what I have to say, or if you're just gonna fight me and try to make me look like a fool? And it's this parable of the lion, the tiger, and the donkey. The tiger and the donkey are looking at a blade of grass, and the donkey says the grass is blue, and the tiger is like, no, it's not. It's green. It's green. It's right there. It's green. The blade of grass is green. And the tiger and donkey fight back and forth, and they're like, well, let's go to the king of the forest, the lion. Let's see what he says. And they go to the king of the forest, and the lion's like, what's going on? And the donkey's like, I keep telling him the grass is blue. The grass is blue. And the tiger's like, no, it's not. It's obviously green. And the lion goes, okay. He's like, you go away. And tiger, he punishes the tiger. I forget what he does in the parable, but he punishes the tiger. Very badly punishes the tiger. And the donkey trots off like all happy and go lucky and everything. And the tiger, once the donkey's gone, is like, why did you punish me? You know the grass is green. And the lion's like, why did you bring this argument to me? You know not to argue with a fool. So there's this stage of awakening that everybody goes through where they want to argue with people about the truth of what they're waking up to and try to change them. They want to try to change people. We have to, as people, learn how to not argue with fools, people who are in their fool stage, their ignorant stage, and especially people who are arguing to control the narrative. I've been in many groups where there's this group mentality. There's one person, everybody follows that person, even though everything that person says is wrong. I've been in situations where it's like, I know more about that subject than that person, and everything they're saying is treated as gold because you have a group of people who are ignorant about the subject, who are listening to them and believe that person. So they believe what that person's saying. They don't know, they just believe what that person is saying is truth. So they follow them because it goes back to this idea of 90% or 10% of the people in the world are good, 10% are bad, the other 80% just want someone to follow. So you get a group of people following this person. Then you get people who know about the subject but will not go against that person because that person is the leader of the group. So they stay quiet, they won't argue, they won't break the peace, that type of thing. Then you get awake people like us. And I've been involved in those groups where I finally started standing up and being like, I'm not going to be quiet about this anymore. This is frankly, it's pissing me off. Things that are being talked about, and very negative storytelling, very twisted perceptions, and very manipulative viewpoints that are manipulating others into believing what this person wanted them to believe. So I started asking questions and saying, okay, how do I do this? Because there are times where that in those situations, and I'm speaking of one time specifically, but it's happened multiple times, and it will, as you wake, you'll find these groups of people like this. But there were times I had been around that person and I had been demeaned, belittled, anything, any idea I tried to put out there, anything I said, I was wrong, and in front of everybody, and nobody would back me up, even though I knew other people agreed with me, type of thing. So I was like, how do I approach this differently so that I'm not in an argument, in a angry state and all that? And I went, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start seeding ideas. So that's what I started. But understand that there are groups of people where you can't seed ideas because they won't let you. Simply won't let you. You'll find that you go to these people and they're talking about their subjects, and they look at you and you're like, well, what about this? How do you feel about this? And you start asking questions. One of the best ways to seed ideas is to ask questions. Not tell people what you think. Ask them what they think. How do you think about this? How do you feel about this? What do you think about this? In this case, they were talking about politics 4 or 5 years ago, last election, back when I was still in my toxic relationship and had those friends around me and that type of thing. And I didn't even get out the questions. I was standing there, and I'll never forget standing in this situation and being like, I'm absolutely done with these lower conscious people. Standing there and going, what about? And then this person who's the leader of this pack of 30, 40 people at this party, standing up and going, no. And me going, what about? No. What? No. No, 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 no. And like just telling me no over and over again to shut up, to be quiet, not to say anything. And what they knew is that I knew they were a fraud. I knew they were fake. I knew they were full of shit, so to speak. And I was going to bring awareness to that through asking questions, not through telling them. The craziest thing is nobody around me out of those people, not even my partner of the time, was like, wait, we want to hear what he has to say. Was like, wait, what is he trying to ask? Nobody came up to me afterwards. And that's when I knew I was done with that group. That's when I knew the toxicity of that group was so low and so just beyond toxic that I had to walk away because it wasn't a safe space. I could not ask a question. It is not a safe space. And nobody's going to hear you, because if you start fighting, those other people are going to start fighting, and they'll all join the bandwagon with that person. So as you're waking, you want to make sure you learn these fine lines of what is your safety, and is it worth your energy? Is it worth your energy to actually speak up and say something? Now, a lot of people, when I talk about this, they're like, do you stand up for yourself? And I'm like, yeah, I stand up for myself when I need to stand up for myself and I'm going to be heard. I'm not going to stand up against somebody who's not willing to hear me. Like, it's just not worth my energy. I'm going to walk away. I'm going to look at them and be like, okay, believe what you want to believe. I'm going to go my own way, because nothing I say will change their mind. It won't plant a seed. It won't change anything. They're locked in. So with friends and family, you have to be careful of that. You can get into the arguments. You can stand up for things, especially things that are racism is a big one that comes up with families. If they're saying things, you can stand up and say, like, I don't agree with this. Stop this. This is wrong. This is why. At the same time, understand there's a point in which your energy is no longer valued in that situation to make that change, where you're just perpetuating the anger, you're just perpetuating the cycle of argument. And so ask yourself the question, are you actually, is your energy in giving your viewpoint, giving your stance, standing up for what is right in that situation? Is it actually going to do anything there? Is it actually going to benefit you, or is it going to make you a target and just make you the dumping bag for all of their trauma? Because we don't, it's this whole thing when it comes to politics, when it comes to war, when it comes to just differences in ideas, you never ever get two people to agree when they're fighting, when they're pushing button heads. You have to ask questions. So like with racism, you might be like, if they're being racist and using racist language, you might say like, hey, I don't agree with this. How would you feel if you were of that race and somebody was calling you that? How would you feel? You use questions. You don't argue with them. You don't fight with them. You don't butt heads. You use questions. You seed ideas. And then you feel out the situation and go, well, it's getting really heavy, intense. They're no longer hearing me. And you'll know when they're not hearing you because they'll just talk over you. They'll talk over you. They'll tell you no. They'll be like, this is the way it is. And that's when you pull back your energy and just let it go, because you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to get anywhere with it. Once you see the idea, there's a point where some people will listen to you and some people won't. And you have to feel that out. Now, here's the magical part. When you're in these groups of people, now, unfortunately, there have been times where I have been in those groups and nobody has done this because they're all too afraid and follow the leader and all this stuff in low consciousness. But oftentimes when you're in these groups of people and you say, like, I don't agree with this. How do you feel about this? How do you, what's your stance? Like, why not this? Or, ask questions, learn to see. You'll notice that there are other people who agree with you. Most of the people in the group are following the ideology and the energy of one person in every group. You get people into a group and they get a group mentality, and there's almost always a leader of that energy, of that idea. But when you start asking questions and seeding information, you're not going to change the leader. You're not going to find the leader coming to you and being like, oh, I changed my mind. What you're going to find is you step away from the energy and you're like, you know what, I'm not arguing with you. Believe what you want to believe. I'm going over here and I'm going to, spend some time over here and just stay out of this conversation because it's not beneficial in any way. So you go over and you sit down. You'll notice that occasionally one of those people will come over and sit down beside you and be like, yeah, I believe in aliens too. I've seen one. And you get them off to the side by themselves and they open up to you. You get them off to the side by themselves and they start talking to you more about it because they can't talk to you in the group and they're afraid to talk to you in the group. But once you make it known what you believe and what you feel, they'll talk to you outside of the group. So keep that in mind, that as you see these ideas and not argue. If you argue, you're just going to alienate those people too. You're going to make it known that if you argue and demand and say this is the way it is, you're creating a repeat cycle from the other side, and you're just making it more unsafe for people who do have those beliefs too. So you want to go into this phase of learning to control the emotions. You still have to release them at some point. Like people get angry. I've gotten angry before with my family. You have to safely release them, but also understanding how to safely release them and when to safely release them. Not just releasing them on others because you're in the moment and trying to get your point across, because that doesn't help. That energy doesn't help of anger. It just perpetuates more anger from the other side. And if you do it properly and you seed ideas and you start talking and asking questions and just being like, what do you think? What about this? You'll find that there are often people, even people who you feel are the most unawake people, who agree with you, but they won't say it in a group setting. It's this whole thing. George Carlin had said it one time. He's like, people. He doesn't like people. Doesn't like people. You get them in a group and they're monsters. They're monsters in a group. But you get them off to the side, one-on-one, and they are the most beautiful souls. You can see universes in their eyes and all this other stuff. Kind, calm, and they just want to experience love and all that. But you get them in a group, and it's like they just turn into monsters. And that's the whole thing. You have to seed ideas to figure out who's ready for them. And sometimes it'll surprise you who comes to talk to you, especially when it comes to galactics and ships and stuff. You'll find out that your grandfather that you didn't think believed in any of that comes off to the side. If you mention something about it offhand, seeding an idea, you walk off to the side, and later on you're sitting there and here he's telling you about what they saw in the Korean War or something. So remember, through the holidays, do your best to control those lower emotions, to stay calm, to stay peaceful. And that is one of the most threatening things for lower conscious people, which is why you'll also, when you're speaking to them, they feel threatened because of how calm you are about something, because you know in your own self that you are right and that you are experiencing your reality, and that you are strong and powerful in yourself. And they know that when you are calm and when you are peaceful and you are saying, what about this? How do you feel about this? Even though you might feel anger that you need to release later, because that does happen. But as long as you stay calm, those people understand you're a threat to the reality they've built with those groups, to the following they've created. So what happens is other people see how calm you are, and they're not fighting with the other person. And it's revealing of who the other people are and what their state of consciousness is. So then, again, seed ideas, ask questions. If a topic if it gets to a point where people are arguing, just drop it. Because if they're arguing, they're not willing to hear each other. And let me be clear, there's a difference between argument and debate. Debate can get heated. Argument is fighting. Argument is where people are fighting each other. Debate is something where you can debate with a person and be speaking on a topic and disagreeing with each other, and it can get heated and emotional, but you're not fighting each other, you're not calling each other names, you're not belittling, you're not being mean in any way, you're not forcing something. Your debate is usually like you're speaking your side, you're asking questions, you're trying to learn from each other. It might be heated because the topic has emotions behind it, but you're not trying to hurt the individual in any way or force things in any way. That's the difference. That's the biggest difference. So if people are arguing, they're going to be calling each other names, they're going to be belittling people, they're going to be doing toxic things, and that's when they can't hear you. If they're doing things that are toxic, if they're interrupting you, talking over you, they don't have the capacity to hear you. That's when you back away. If they're debating, that's a different topic, because some people don't understand the difference between debate and argument because they're very similar. I even have trouble with that sometimes, because people will debate me and they'll be in a very argue type of energy, but they're debating, and I have to remember this is not, it's kind of a trigger for me too, like that in that space I have to constantly remember, okay, they're not arguing with me, they're not being mean, they're not belittling me, they're not all this stuff, they're actually debating this topic. It's just emotional type of thing. That's okay. It's okay to get emotional about a topic as if you're debating, but if you're arguing, if you're being mean, if you're being nasty, toxic, that's where you step away. That's where you step away from those people, because they are not going to hear you. And kind of that situation I said earlier, where I was trying to say, what if, what about, and every time, I think I asked it like 10 times, and he just said no. And right in a row, within 30 seconds, I was like, what if, what about, no. And that's just where I went, oh, nobody cares what I think here. Nobody wants to hear me here. Why am I going to waste my energy? And I was like, I'm done. I walked away. Those were friends for 20 years. I was like, I'm absolutely out. See ya, type of thing. Because I realized in that moment, my energy was not valued and my energy was wasted. And nobody cared in that situation about what was going on. Nobody. The whole room, the whole group and thing saw it. Nobody gave any backup or anything, or wanted to hear what I had to say or anything. So I realized in that moment that was an unsafe space, low conscious space. I pulled back. I raised my state of peace. I raised my awareness, and I attracted better friends. So, it's also about realizing in those moments when you start speaking, who values you? Do people value your presence? Are you in a space that is a space of trauma bonding, of toxicity, or do they value your presence being there? Remember, just because the word family exists, my whole stance on family is not blood lineage. Family is the group of people you resonate with and who treat you with respect and value your energy. That is your family. That can be blood lineage, and it might not be blood lineage. It all depends. Most of my life, my family has been my friends, not my family type of energy. So you have to ask yourself, are you in spaces where you are valued? Are you in spaces where you are, going to be seen as an equal and given a chance and all this other stuff? Or are you in spaces that are simply, that you've out-resonated, like I did with those friends? I out-resonated them and then called them on what they were doing, and they didn't like that, so I had to step away and leave those friendships. Or are you in a space of trauma bonding and toxicity, like with a lot of families are trauma bonded, and that type of thing. So over the course of the holidays, again, this is coming out a little bit later than I wanted to, so it's probably not going to hit people for Thanksgiving, but we've got the weekend and stuff that people do holiday activities with. Just remember, seed ideas. Try to, don't argue or fight with people. Debate with them. Debate, but don't argue and fight. And try to seed ideas through questions and feel into, is this worth my energy, or am I sharing too much? Am I making myself a target when the value of the energy being put in is not valuable? Comes back to the lion, the tiger, and the donkey. Don't argue with fools. Don't spend energy on fools. If they are a fool, if they're not going to hear you and listen to you, stay silent. That's your best course of action. And that doesn't mean you're not standing up for yourself. You actually are. You're standing up for your own energy. You're protecting your energy. You're protecting the output of your energy. And you're protecting your energy from creating more animosity around you that projects onto you. So you are standing up for yourself in that silence, because there is no way you can shift the ideology of a fool who does not want to hear you. So keep that in mind over this holiday season. I love each and every one of you. I'm grateful for each and every one of you. You are all family and friends. And I just hope that you have a beautiful holiday, and that this video helps make it a little bit easier for you. I love you all. Thank you.